Welcome on another magical live adventure here in the African bush, starting off with definitely one of the cutest creatures to see. This is Safari Live.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this, your live safari from the western fringes of the Great Kruger National Park, part of 8.5 million acres of spectacular African wilderness. My name is James Henry. On camera today is David. You've already met Jamie. This is my office over here. Out in the bush today, we have Stefan. He's on foot, knocking about the place, pushing over logs, looking under bark for scorpions, and perhaps the odd piece of big game on foot, which is, of course, the ultimate wilderness experience. Then, the inimitable and very excitable Brent Smith is finding, hopefully, a leopard and her 2 cubs on the far eastern fringes of Djuma. Djuma is the piece of land that we call home here, a magnificent part of what I think is one of Africa's great wilderness areas. Come inside here if you'd like to. Well, you don't really have a choice. You have to come with me now. This is my office. This is what we call either the museum or the shelf of death, depending on what you like. And then we have 2 other very special things to show you. The first is my best friend in the world, Ronald the Robot. Have a look at his view. That's his view there, everybody. Now, Ronald is looking at a hippopotamus. There, you can see the hippopotamus. Isn't that cool? Ooh, Ronald's going to get a bit of a bow wave coming over. Ooh, we've got to reverse him up there. And the hippo took a little bit of offense. Anyway, Ronald is a very small robot. And what he does is get a kind of mongoose eye view. So we'll set him up during the course of the afternoon. He might see some birds, he might see some animals, and various other things. Then also we have the microscope, which we'll show you a little bit later. But first, let's go and find out how the hunt for the great Queen of Djuma is going with Brent Smith.
Welcome to the middle of the African bush. We are live and there is a tiny little leopard cub right next to us. My name is Brent Smith. I have my good friend Brian on camera, and together we are known as the Killer Bees. You might notice there is an evil baboon on his finger, and of course those who watched the sunrise safari know that these little leopard cubs had a very close encounter with the baboons. I can only see one so far, and I think it looks like young Xongile, the female cub. I'm not sure where Karula is at the moment. We've just arrived where she's moved the carcass. So she's moved away from where she was. And this is a very content-looking leopard cub. You would swear nothing untoward happened on the sunrise safari. But of course, it has. Now, if you have any questions, remember #SafariLive on Twitter. Isn't this incredible? So I'm pretty sure this is Xongile that we've seen, and I know Xongile wasn't seen at the end of the sunrise safari, but they've been chased by baboons and wild dogs in the last 10 days. And I've noticed that independence of a female leopard cub is already starting to come through. She seems to be a little bit wiser than her brother and puts big distance between herself and potential threats. Now, we noticed that with the wild dogs, and you didn't even see her, from what I can understand, during that must have been very traumatic baboon sighting. So we're just going to move forward a little bit so we know where one little leopard is. Now, where are the other leopards? Well, particularly where's young Hosana? And where is the queen herself, Karula? For those who are new, Queen Karula, the dominant female leopard within our traverse area. One of the best moms around, raised many litters to adulthood. So the carcass looks like it's over there. Well, what's left of that? So while we try to figure out where the rest of the leopards are and what's going on, let's go see Steph, who's on foot.
Good afternoon, yes, and I'm Stefan. We're on foot today here at Djuma Private Game Reserve. Chandra, as always, is on camera with me, and we're at one of my favorite places. This has to be the largest tree in Djuma. I don't know of a bigger tree here. It's a jackalberry tree, and I just love coming past this tree. Not only is it a couple of 100 years old, and by a couple of 100 years, I mean probably close to plus minus 500 years old, but it's also, from a volume point of view, the largest crown and the largest trunk size, weighing several hundred tons. I would imagine, maybe not 100 tons. Let's say probably about 100 tons or so. If we work out that this tree has a density of around about 1,000 kilograms, which is about 500 pounds or so per cubic meter, you can do your own maths and work out how you want to on this side. It's just one of the most spectacular trees. The African ebony or the jackalberry tree. And just a really good ancient being. Someone that I like to spend quite a lot of time with. And one that is home to a bunch of creepy crawlies. But anyway, we won't get into that right now. We're gonna carry on with our walk today. We're gonna send you over to Jamie, who's got some lions for you.
And what a spectacular start to this afternoon's sunset safari, and I'm sure many of you relieved that Xongile is safe and sound, which I'm sure means that all of the leopards have made it through their morning unscathed. Some more comforting news for all of you is that all 8 of the Nkuhuma cubs are here. Of course, I know for our regular viewers there's always a slight concern after our Hansel and Gretel moment, where 2 of them wandered off and disappeared for nearly 3 days before returning to the pride a little bit thin, but none the worse for their adventures. So all of the lions are safe and sound. And to set the scene, interestingly enough, from yesterday's rehearsal, we have a look at that buffalo. When we arrived yesterday for our closed rehearsal, the buffalo had just been killed. They'd barely started feeding off it. It's amazing how in the past we'd seen the Nkuhumas linger over their buffalo kills for a good few days. Now, with 8 new growing members, and the buffalo has barely lasted 24 hours. And all of the cubs are sporting very full bellies and very tired expressions. And I'm sure that the females are starting to bemoan the taxing nature of their grocery bill on a day-to-day basis. The poor Nkuhuma females are having to kill a buffalo and have been killing a buffalo roughly every 2 days over the last month. It's quite incredible. Now, what's interesting about this is that yesterday when I was here on the equivalent, well, in the afternoon, all 5 lionesses were about. Now we've only got 3 of them. Makes me very curious as to where the other 2 are. But for our newer viewers, the Nkuhuma pride consists of 5 adult lionesses and 8 little cubs of 3 different ages. Oh, it's a mystery to be solved. Are the other adult lionesses somewhere around here, perhaps just hiding behind a termite mound, maybe tired of the antics of the cubs who are, despite their doing their current impressions of little logs, are usually quite active and very often will not object to climbing all over their aunts, biting them, nibbling on them. Perhaps the aunts have decided to take a break, the 2 lionesses without cubs. The mothers, of course, don't have that luxury. They've got to stick around and make sure all cubs are present and accounted for and protected. Yesterday, during our rehearsal, we were sitting here with the buffalo kill, and our favorite short-trunked elephant decided to come wandering in and promptly chased the lions off their buffalo kill and sent them scattering into the bushes. It was thoroughly entertaining to watch because one lioness was so determined not to give up their buffalo kill that she actually charged the elephant that was chasing her, only to think twice about it very quickly and go disappearing off after the rest of the pride. They then proceeded to use my vehicle as a way of sneaking back to their buffalo kill, and as you can see, they have not been permanently displaced. They've just simply dragged it a little way underneath a tree. Now, who knows what could happen this afternoon? There are so many elephants around and about on Djuma. We could actually see a repeat performance of yesterday afternoon. Now everybody seems thoroughly settled, and what a wonderful way to spend a lazy Tuesday. I'm sure you're all keen on finding out what's happening with those leopards. Let's see how Brent is getting on in the search for the missing 2.
Well, we found Mom. Here's Karula, very much fast asleep. The Queen of Djuma looking quite relaxed in this reclining position. And no sign of young Hosana just yet. But from what I understand, he did escape the attentions of the evil baboons. Of course, the baboons are not really evil, and they are just worried that Karula and her offspring might run off with one of their offspring. So it is normal behavior for baboons to chase leopards. They'll probably think twice with a big male leopard, but a female leopard and cubs, they definitely wouldn't want them in an area they're frequenting. And that big baboon troop does frequent this area around Cheetah Cut Line. Oh, there we go. I've been hearing them getting closer. There's also a big herd of buffalo that are just behind. And you can hear them lowing in the background every now and then. Brrr, moo. Now, buffalo low at a slightly lower level than a domestic cow. Now, of course, it was obviously quite heart-wrenching for us because we are very invested in Karula and her cubs. James Dungan is wondering, well, in a completely open area, could a baboon run down a leopard if there's no tree to get into? A leopard cub, yes, James, but an adult leopard, probably not. Now, of course, that a leopard is armed with a massive set of defensive weaponry in her claws and teeth, or his claws and teeth, and it's one of those things that you never quite know how it's going to play out. Now, of course, baboons have canines that are longer than lions, and it is a very scary prospect. Now, one amazing thing, and I really wish I'd been able to see it, but my dad actually saw it in the Linyanti region of northern Botswana. Oh, hello. Head up. What did you hear, Queen Karula? Oh, anyway, well, I think she's probably just going to put her head down again. So, as I was saying, I really wish I'd been able to see it, but my dad did see it. There was a female leopard, not much bigger than Karula, and she actually developed a way of hunting baboons out of those massive troops. And she would actually run into the middle of the troop, grab a female or a young one, and then almost play dead. She used to lie flat on the ground, and the baboons used to try bite her and grab her, and she just used to lie there till the baboons eventually left her alone. She would get up, pick up the baboon she'd killed, and walk off. Now, I'm pretty sure in that area that is learnt behavior, and one must remember that a lot of animal behavior is area specific rather than species specific. So because a leopard in Linyanti does that, does not mean a leopard in the Sabi Sands is going to do that. Of course, the Linyanti region of Botswana has a baboon population probably quadruple that of the Sabi Sands. Now, we're going to try see if we can find Hosana. We're going to do a little bumble around. And I just mentioned how massive those baboon canines are. And fortunately, our man on the ground in the tent has got a perfect example of how potentially dangerous those teeth are.
Completely unlike my teeth, everybody. Now, I'm just finding my afternoon tea because David on camera has failed to get any for me. We'll have a look at that underneath the microscope shortly. But, James Richard, you and various others wanted to see the baboon skull. Now, look at this thing. It is utterly terrifying, and this is the size of the baboon head that chased that little cub today. Now, what happened today was quite frightening. I was out there watching the leopards eating very peacefully today. And then there was the sound of baboons coming, and the leopards ran. They just got up and took off. And this huge baboon with a head roughly this side went charging through the bush after the little male cub, chased it up a tree. And I think actually before he went up a tree, there was a bit of a commotion on the ground. We didn't see it. It was in some thick bush, and I think the baboon actually caught the leopard. The leopard turned around, swatted him, probably bit him. He's quite strong already, that little leopard, and then he shot up a tree, and he was perched up in the top of it, and the baboon was sitting underneath him in the marula tree, grabbing at him and chomping those great gnashes. Anyway, that is bigger than a female leopard's canine. And it's also sharper. And the reason it's sharper, everybody, is because a baboon does not use this tooth much to eat. So you've seen how the leopards eat. They crush the bones, and that eventually kind of blunts the tooth off a bit. Baboons just have a razor-sharp edge. These are purely used for fighting and defense. Yes, they will bite every so often, their food, but largely it's this. So that's what the leopard was running from, and you can see why it was doing that. You'd run from that, wouldn't you, David? I'm sure you would. Now, let's quickly go across to the dam camera. Have a look here. There is an Egyptian goose, and the Egyptian goose is seemingly oblivious to Ronald. Now, what we're going to do is turn Ronald. Ah, hello, Goosey. There we go. Ronald's making a new friend. There is George the goose. And let's see. We don't want to frighten the goose. The goose will come back. They're very kind of, well, they're not frightened of much. So I know although the goose might fly away, it will come back, and I'm not worried about there being a lack of water. So we're going to see how far we can push this, because Ronald, well, he's not very shy, and he wants to make a good friend. There he goes. Come on, Ronald. Now, be kind. Just remember, not everyone's as confident as you are. I think that's wonderful. Isn't that fun? So that's Ronald and the goose, and we'll see what else he has to see during the course of the afternoon. Now, I'm going to quickly try and see what this disgusting fruit looks like under the microscope. If it's any good, I'll show you when you come back here. But in the meantime, let's head across to Jamie Patterson and the Nkuhuma Pride.
The Nkuhuma Pride looking thoroughly content and comfortable, apart from the little cubs that are so determined to suckle, and the females are not quite so keen and not exactly making their lives very easy. This female's just rolled over with cub still attached, and it's so funny to watch them as they do that, because of course the cubs have a little tantrum whenever it does happen to them. Whenever they find themselves no longer able to suckle, and they start squealing and groaning at the lioness. This little cub's managed to make it work somehow, though, wrapping itself over Mom's belly. Oh, there we go. Okay, it's not working out quite so well. Just hop over, little cub. It will make your life a great deal easier. And probably better for your mom as well. I can't imagine that having just eaten an entire buffalo, she really feels like your roly-poly weight on top of her. She doesn't seem too bothered, though. In fact, she couldn't look less bothered if she tried. A puddle of cubs, all piled on top of each other. It's quite a chilly day this afternoon. It's 21 degrees centigrade, which is 69 in Fahrenheit. So they're all keeping each other warm. And Kinad, you wanted to know, and I think very aptly so, you wanted to know how many hours a lion will sleep for. It depends on what's happening in their lives. If they've got a kill like this and they don't have to worry too much, there we go. Mom's decided to just give in. Might make things easier. Sorry, Kinad. Distraction by rolling lioness. It depends on their circumstances. In a situation like this, where they have a kill that they've been feeding on, full bellies, they don't have to worry too much for now about their next meal. They can sleep for up to 20 hours a day, catnapping on and off. The cubs less so, just because they have lots and lots of energy, just like children, to get rid of. They'll start bounding around with each other, playing with each other, and that's something we can expect to see on this cool afternoon, once they do decide to wake up. And they tend to keep their mothers awake as well. But on other days, when the lions haven't eaten for a while, they'll get up and they'll move almost constantly, restlessly, particularly at night, but even during the day, on a cool day like today, in search of food. And I think it's safe to say these lionesses will not be here by tomorrow morning. They'll be up and about, searching for their next meal. Oh, flop down. For the moment now, they're giving us a perfect example of what a champion sleepers lions can really be. I think if they were a gold medal, they might win it. But will an ear twitch? Will the cubs get up? Will a lioness roll over? Stay tuned to find out. And for those of you watching on the internet, which is of course all of you today, none of this will make any sense to you if you are a new viewer. So let me just explain just quickly what's going on. There are obviously no ad breaks at the moment, but we do have to practice for when the time comes that we are doing television shows and there are commercial breaks, which is why we practice getting the timing of it all right. So that's what that was all about. It's not because we're actually going into an ad break, not right now. I did think about trying to make up something thoroughly entertaining, perhaps advertising the new spa treatment that VM's thought up involving lion licking, gentle massaging, but I think we'll give that a skip for now. So that's what that was all about. And of course we have to practice our timing, because if we don't, then Kirsty shouts at us, which we don't want. As I said, these lions are thoroughly flat at the moment. They're going to be doing this, I think, for the rest of the afternoon. We might at some point leave them for a while, go off perhaps in search of the missing lionesses and see what other things we can find, and then we'll return to them for the end of our sunset safari, which will be, a reminder for you all, it will be 1 hour shorter than normal, so it will only be 2 hours this afternoon. Oh, kicking each other in the head. See the lionesses looking up constantly, and I think it's just in response to the presence of vultures. Now I can't see one to try and show you, but they are looking up constantly. I think some of the vultures have moved to where they had the kill. As I said that, one of them gave me such a fright. Shot out of the tree. There you go. There's some of the vultures settled on the dead tree, waiting for the opportunity to sneak down and feed. For now, the lions aren't letting them anywhere near the kill, but every now and again we see the lionesses' heads pop up as they look around them, and whenever you see that attentiveness, it's because they're looking at the presence of the vultures, making sure that they're not thinking about coming in to try and steal some of their meal. I think it's unlikely, though. Vultures are very, very good at playing the patience game. They're not going to be coming down anytime soon. They'll wait for these lions to go. I don't think these lions are planning on going anywhere. This little one suckling. The little ones are still often seeking out the females for milk. I think that time is coming to an end. I've actually been saying that for about 2 weeks now, and the females are still lactating. And that time is coming when it will run out and they'll have to exist solely on the food provided. Right, well, while we sit here and decide what we're going to do, let's head out on foot with Steph, who has a knack for the smaller things.
You know, we were at this weeping boar bean a couple of weeks ago now, probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, and to date it is the one with the most flowers on that I've found on our travels on foot here through Djuma. And this is the one that is in the drainage line, I suppose, just to the eastern side of Gowrie Cut line, for those of you who like that sort of thing. And just listen to the birds that are just singing away. It is obviously one of the few trees with as many flowers as it has, and is just an absolute magnet for all of the sunbirds in the area. I mean, we've got Mariko sunbirds, but not just 1 or 2. We've got 3 or 4 male Mariko sunbirds where they're attending females, and then some white-bellied sunbirds as well, to be quite honest with you. I don't quite know how many females per male. Generally speaking, it's only 1 that I know of, but there's definitely males and females over here, and we'll see now as we look back in there to see how many you can see flitting around. It will be difficult to actually see what birds they are because of the greyish background and no sunlight, but just know that everything you're looking at is a sunbird. Now, we're going to be welcoming back our TV audience, so just a little bit of patience. Now, welcome back. And what we have over here is we have a weeping boar bean in full bloom, and one of the only weeping boar beans on this particular farm at the moment, or on this particular game reserve at the moment, that has any flowers whatsoever. I spend quite a lot of my time wandering around in the bush, and have been for the last 3 or 4 weeks or so, looking for weeping boer beans just like this with flowers on. You know, we found one other tree that has a lot on, but nothing quite like this. And right now, this is for nectivores, or birds that enjoy drinking nectar, and for insects that enjoy drinking nectar. One of those just islands in the middle of a sea of, well, nothing to eat, really, I suppose is the way to say it. There's very little to eat here. The aloes have all finished. Of the early flowering trees have finished with their flowers, and it's just leaving these weeping boer beans. But just have a look at that. Now, not only do they produce a lovely nectar for sunbirds, but they also produce a bean. And for early settlers in this area, that bean was roasted and then ground down and used as a substitute for coffee. And that's where it gets its common name from in India, the boer, which means settler or farmer, and bean, for obvious reasons, this little bean that it gets in this flat pod towards the end of summer. Oh, it's just one of my favorite trees. Anyway, we're going to carry on moving on, and James has a picture of a sunbird because we couldn't show you one here.
Well, I actually have a picture of many sunbirds, everybody, and that is, of course, because there are many sunbirds in Africa. These are all the birds of Africa. Phew, over 1,000 of them, believe it or not, and probably close to 40, I think there are 1,400 species of bird here. Of the sunbirds, we get 2 largely here, or maybe 3, and the Merico, which is what Steph was showing you there, is this fellow. I found him and then I lost him. Sorry, everybody. There he is. He's over there. That's him there. And he's actually a bit more colourful than that if you see him in good light. Anyway, that's him. That's the Merico sunbird. And many of you will be wondering, do we get hummingbirds here? Because you'll see that long beak and you'll think, oh, that must be a hummingbird. It is what we call the evolutionary equivalent of a hummingbird, and that is because it's got a very similar beak. It's got the same strategy of hovering next to plants sometimes they just perch on them, and sticking that beak into the middle of the plant and sucking out the nectar. Now, another part of the springtime, obviously those flowers are parts of the spring, that calling of the sunbirds is also part of the spring, but there's new life everywhere here. Have a look at this. That, everybody, is the egg sac of a spider. And I don't know what kind of spider it is. It's a jumping spider of some sort. But you can see there the little spiderlings. They're not dead. They're very much alive. And when we found them, they were scuttling about. And there we go. Look on the right-hand side. Look at that. Now, they are tiny, tiny, tiny. They're probably about 0.5 millimeter across. Now, I don't know what that is in imperial. I don't think you have an imperial measure small enough for that. 0.5 millimeter, well, roughly, I suppose, a 20th of an inch, a 40th of an inch. So tiny, tiny, tiny little things. You can see the legs moving there. And they will eventually probably live on the edge of a grass stalk where they'll probably catch things like ants, I think. Isn't that amazing? I think that's just too spectacular for words. Great. Now, just remember, we are as live in the tent as they are everywhere else on this reserve, so you can ask us questions, #SafariLive, about anything in here, any of the skulls and things like that, and anything that we see underneath the microscope. Brent is still with the great Queen of Juma. Queen. Karula, the peaceful one. Let's go and find out how she's doing.
Oh, look at the beautiful, beautiful little female leopard, Xongile. Now, Karula, while we were looking for Hosana, we did stop to look at some buffalo, has disappeared. And she was looking down towards the west, so I'm wondering if maybe Hosana and Karula's gone to fetch Hosana and he's down there. And we're going to definitely stay here to see how this plays out, because I've got my binoculars out and I've been panning around trying to figure out where the queen went. I mean, we were gone for a minute and a half. She disappeared. Well, that's the thing. It's live. You never know what's going to happen. So hopefully she does come back. But we're going to stay with the one leopard we can see, and hopefully she will either lead us or Karula will call her, and we're going to see some interaction. Now, there's buffalo all around us. One is giving us the evil eye at the moment. I don't know if you're going to be able to get him, Brian, can you? Directly behind us. I'm just going to swing roll the car maybe a little bit. It's just that it's giving us such a funny look, as my grandmother would say. It's just giving us the proper evil eye through the bush. Now there's that old joke that when a buffalo looks at you like that, he looks at you like you owe them money. Of course, now it's decided our debt is cleared. No, we still. I think it's the Brian that owes him money, not me.
Oh, sorry, my bad.
Now, of course, I'm really fascinated to where Karula could have disappeared off to. There's a couple of different explanations, and one is all the buffalo are coming a little bit close, but if that had been the case, she would have actually fetched what was left of the carcass and tried to hoist it. Second is she's gone to look for Hosana. She hasn't seen him around for a bit. He might be wondering like a naughty little boy, so she's gone to go say, "Where are you, little Hosana?" And the third, which I thought was possible when we couldn't find her, I actually went and saw some impala, and I thought, oh, maybe she's stalking again. And it's going to be interesting to see how this all plans out. And that's the amazing thing about being live in the bush. Literally, there's no script. We do not know what is going to happen next. And I'm just going to move forward a bit, because now to see the buffalo, put a little log in front of the beautiful face of young Xongile. How's that, Brian? Now, I'm severely puzzled as to where Karula's gone, but while we wait for the Queen's imminent return, hopefully it's a grand and a royal entrance, we are lucky enough to be with one of the most exquisite little creatures in the African bush. Now, I'm not going anywhere till I can figure out what's going on, and hopefully we'll find out shortly. But while we do that, Jamie's got a tusked beast to show you.
Not the tusked creature I was planning on heading out to look for, but definitely a welcome sight indeed. And unusually, this particular warthog seems to be quite chilly. It looks as though it's got goosebumps. Look at that. I've definitely not seen that on a warthog before. It's got chicken flesh. It is cold. It's not that cold, though. And another interesting thing was that this warthog just had an oxpecker sitting on it, which is not something we often get to see. An oxpecker is a type of bird that picks off the ticks and exoparasites on the various creatures out here. Here he goes. She goes. My apologies, it is a she. Here she goes, a creature with a somewhat unfair reputation of being incredibly ugly. I mean, look, they're not winning any beauty contests. I don't think they're ugly, though. I think they're fascinating. And it's been such a pleasure over the last few months. Initially, when I started driving these areas, the warthogs would see you coming from a mile away and sprint off into the bush and disappear. And over the last few months, they've become more and more relaxed with us. Don't know what it is. I think it's perhaps just that we're spending more and more periods or longer periods of time with them. And they've just become more comfortable with us in the vehicles, seeing us as not really a threat. You can see she's snuffling around there, looking underground. Warthogs have an incredibly sensitive sense of smell. What she's doing now, apart from snapping up any shoots of grass, is actually digging with her snout and snuffling up tubers and root systems, anything with plenty of nutrients in it. Of all the animals out here, the warthogs are the ones that have, one of the ones that have suffered the most during the drought, and we've seen quite a few thin-looking warthogs, so it's nice to see a female in such good condition. She's looking absolutely fine and healthy. And off she goes. I think perhaps on the way to the Voyatella Dam to see if she can have a drink. Now, we've just seen one of the... Well, I was about to say we've seen one of the ugliest creatures. I'm going to go in search of some of the more beautiful ones. But while I do that, James has a warthog skull. Let's go and have a look.
Well, yes. Well, yes, indeed, a warthog skull of sorts and a tooth and bits and pieces. You stay there. Now, this is a very ancient warthog. It is long dead, you can see. There we are. And this is where the top's sort of tusk fits in. No, that's the wrong side. Let's put it in this side. There we go. There we are. See? Very nice. And you can see this was probably a boar warthog, much bigger, thicker tusks than that sow you've been looking at there. And also, you can see where the occlusion has taken place, and that occlusion is where the bottom tooth, or bottom canine, the canine being the same kind of tooth that baboon had, of course, that rubs against this, and then what it does is sharpens very severely, and it becomes an absolute razor. Okay, well, from one warthog, which can also pose a bit of a danger to a leopard, let's head back to the beautiful Xongile.
Well, the beautiful Xongile has vacated the screen, and we're just trying to get another view of her. So Karula is on her way back. We can just see her straight ahead of us through the bush. There she is. Was that? Yes, it is. And no, that's Hosana. Oh, Karula's in front already. Hosana's here. Oh, yay, he's safe, he's sound. There we go. She went to fetch him, so that's what she did. Now, Xongile just saw Karula moving through. Karula's actually ahead. We saw her first. And what she did was, in case it could be a male leopard, Xongile literally ran off, skulked off into some thickets further to the east of us. And I can't see her now, but let's go with the two leopards we've got. So Xongile went off down here, and we just lost sight of her. But let's see, I think Karula's probably going to call her back. So we were looking for Hosana in the wrong place. We thought he might be up here, but it turned out he was down where all the buffalo were. No, is he going to go straight to the carcass? Now they're looking for Xongile. So she might call, or Karula might call. And he's going straight to what's left of that impala. Now, what's happened here is I've just been speaking about this incredible survival instinct the young Xongile seems to have as opposed to her brother. She makes sure she is far from harm's way when it comes a knocking. And there was just a little display of it now. She just disappeared. She just got a glimpse of Karula through the bush. Thought, ooh, is that mom or is it another female leopard or another male leopard? Either of which could be a danger to her. So she immediately slunk off. I mean, very low to the ground. Oh, naughty boy. Catherine says, wonderful! The family is all back together, more or less. Okay, well, let's try and get a bit more of a view, at least, of the family we have. Xongile went. She should come back just now. Now, you never know what's going to happen. We've had buffalo here. We've had the little leopards disappearing, mother finding one, and you never know what's going to happen next. So we are about to go into a break shortly, but there's so much action happening out here in the African bush. But before we do that, let's get into a position to see young Hosana, the little prince. Oh, sorry about the leaves, Brian. So there we go. As we disappear, he's started to feed. There's almost nothing left of this impala. Isn't that just wonderful? And remember to stay tuned to see if he can finish it all, or will his little sister come join him. So, of course, everyone knows this is a rehearsal. So, of course, there isn't an actual advert happening at the moment. But we, here at Safari Live, would like to offer you the chance to, well, Brian, all off to you.
Welcome to the Thumb. The Thumb has extensive security called Baboon Security. Come down to the Thumb now to experience all the great things and security. The Thumb. TNCs apply.
Hopefully, young Hosana doesn't see your thumb because he might run away after his morning with baboons. Now, I'm going to try reposition ourselves out of the trees, which we are in at the moment. It's a little red bush willow. Now, for those of you who are watching the sunrise safari, it was very, very scary. And Cricket, who's 7 years old, hi Cricket, what a wonderful name, would like to know, are all cats, big cats, scared of baboons? Well, female leopards and leopard cubs generally are. A big male leopard, sometimes, but the lions are not scared of baboons. The baboons are very much scared of the lions. Now, we say that the baboons are also scared of the leopards, and that causes that aggressive behavior that they display. The likelihood of these cubs and the female being here tomorrow are quite slim. I think they're going to finish this up in the next couple of hours, and they're going to move on. Oh, Xongile has been spotted, would be my guess. Behind us, I've just heard an impala snort. And it's alarming and telling all the other impala that there's a leopard around. Of course, you never know. Maybe Mr. Tingana, the dominant male, might be on his way down the road. That is always a possibility. It's a cool day today, so big cats are able to move. Now, to the north of us in Buffelshoek, the old man. Oh, I'll get to that now. Oh, he's just repositioning for a better feeding spot. But James is wondering, is there any updates on Mvula, the old male leopard? There are indeed. He is still on a bushbuck kill, or sorry, an Nyala kill in Buffelshoek, so to the north of our Travis area. Now, I keep peering over my shoulder, trying to see if young Xongile is on her way back. So he looks none the worse the wear for his baboon encounter this morning. I didn't see any limps as he was walking, and he's tucking into this impala with gusto. And he's quite lucky. He's actually very lucky. Now, we talk about how only about 30% of leopard cubs survive to adulthood. And there was a prime example. It's not only other leopards, although they do account for the majority of the infanticides. It's baboons, it could be a python, it could be a lion, a hyena, a wild dog. The African bush is quite dangerous if you're little. But fortunately, Karula is such a fantastic mother. I'm just going to move forward a little bit for you, Brian. What do you think? See if we can change the angle a little bit. How's that for you? Oh, sorry, Brian. There we go. There's Queen Karula. Now she's keeping a watchful eye out on the big herd of buffalo that's all around here. Welcome back, and good to have you back with us. Now, while you've been gone, not much has changed. So that little female leopard cub is still somewhere to the southeast of us. The moms fetched the little male who is devouring what is left of their impala that she caught yesterday. And I keep looking back towards, hoping the little female cub is going to come join us here. But I don't know, she's probably on her way back, but very slowly, wanting to check whether this is actually her mother and brother before coming through. Remember, hashtag Safari Live if you want to ask any questions. Now, of course, this morning's traumatic baboon leopard encounter has left quite a few questions, and Rocky Knight is wondering, well, if a baboon did kill a leopard, would they eat it or would they just leave it? I would say, as a general rule, they'd probably leave it, but you never know. And as soon as you make steadfast rules in the bush will teach you that you are wrong, because we wrote the books. The animals didn't read them, so they don't have to listen to them. Now you might hear some branches breaking around us in the distance, and that's the herd of buffalo. They might come in a bit closer, but while we wait for them to do that, something's going on. What has Karula seen? There could be an impala here. There could be something else that's attracted her attention. Now, even though she's got a kill on the ground, I think there's an impala, Brian. Oh, I'm not sure. I'm trying to check with my binoculars. So even though they've got a kill on the ground, now her behavior to me now is saying she's possibly seen a bit of potential prey. She's not 100% sure yet. She's going to go have a closer look. Now, even though they've got a kill, the predators out here are opportunists, and especially with 2 cubs to feed, they eat a mountain of meat, so mom's got to go to the shops more often than she would if she was by herself. And so if any animal happened to stumble upon where they are, she would take this opportunity to hunt. Have you seen anything yet, Brian? Now, of course, it might not be an impala. There could be an inyala. There could be a duiker. There could be a steenbok. This area is frequented by quite a few different species of antelope. Now, she might have not seen something. She might have heard something that has attracted her attention. You see how her ears are up. She's incredibly focused. There's some elephants in the distance screaming, but that's definitely not what caught her attention. Now, we can't see anything right now, but we're going to keep a close eye on what's happening, and while we do that, let's go back to James, who's got the inner workings of an impala to show you.
The inner workings of an impala would imply that I have an organ or two. I do not. I've got a new hat. What do you think, everybody? David, do you think it looks beautiful? Yes. Thank you. That is David being very kind to me. He says he thinks it looks beautiful. It doesn't, actually. It looks ridiculous, of course. But there are 2 interesting things about these impala skulls. First of all, both of them are male. They have horns, therefore not really related to the one that you've just seen, but they are from the same species. The second thing I wanted to show you was the size of the brain. Now, there is the brain case of this male impala over there, and it is about the size of a peach. Not a very big peach, and so the well, the impala's intellectual sort of capabilities probably slightly at question. And then just very briefly here, these are things called keratophagous moths, or horn-eating moths, and it's the larvae or the caterpillars of the moths that eat the keratin sheath of these horns here of impala. Right, those are the impala skulls. Let's have a look over here at the map. I must confess this is becoming something of a boneyard, so I'm just going to move one or two things out the way. A beautiful map of Djuma Private Game Reserve here on the western fringes of the Kruger National Park, and it was drawn by none other than Graham Wallington, creator and executive producer of this magnificent show that we call Safari Live. It is obviously a work of art. I'm just going to quickly show you where everybody is at the moment. Brent Leo Smith is over here, and he is obviously with Karula the Queen, with her two little babies. There they are. They look like little rats there, of course, and that's on the cheetah cut line. That's the eastern fringes of our traversing area in this particular region. And then Jamie Patterson is knocking about over here, just north of this drainage line there with the lions. That could be Jamie or the lions, really. I'm not sure which that is. Very nice. And then Steph, when I last saw him, was walking around next to that huge jackalberry tree, first of all, and then that scotia, or the weeping boerbean tree, and that's all the way down here in the south. So he's covered quite a lot of ground. We'll draw him like that over there. So that's the lay of the land here at Djuma, and that's where everyone is. We're sitting over here, round about the two camps where Djuma has its tourism operations, and of course tourism a massively important part of what keeps the Kruger Park going. Let's head across to Steph and find out what his big size 10s have managed to find you now.
Yeah. Now, every so often we find a little jewel out here, although as exactly the opposite to this. Sometimes we find these little guys. This is a weed common to South Africa. Have a look at that. Not quite a pretty flower, to be quite honest with you. And it has the most delicious smell. But it is a weed that is creating havoc amongst the river courses in South Africa. I can't remember what country it was actually imported from, but it's called lantana. And now we do find an indigenous lantana. It's a purple flower that we also call bird's brandy. So it gets a little berry that will come out after these flowers have been pollinated. Birds eat that berry. They then regurgitate the pip or the seed of that fruit, and they regurgitate it, generally speaking, underneath big trees. So the birds will come and sit in trees like the one I'm leaning against at the moment. They'll regurgitate out the contents of their crop, which is inclusive of some of these berries. And then the berries will germinate, usually on the edges of river courses. And then when it floods, of course, it also takes these seeds downriver, and they're very, very, very difficult to eradicate. Now, why it's here is not that much of a mystery, because we're relatively close to Djuma camp. And I would imagine that at some point a lantana seed would have been stuck to someone's clothes or brought in from the outside by a bird being blown off course. But yeah, quite weird to find out here, I must be honest with you. It's one of these, we don't find a lot of weeds out here being where we are, but definitely a surprise. Now, James, you've asked me what is the strongest smelling flower around this time of year. It's actually right here. Let me go and see if I can show you, James. If you just give me and Jandre 1 second to get ourselves unstuck from this particular bush. It is right here. It doesn't look like much, but this is the white berry bush. And the white berry bush has a tiny little flower on it. Here it is right here. Now you can see these ones are just about ready to open. In actual fact, here's some that are open here. Let me show you what they look like open. I'll bring it into your frame now. Here's some that are open. That's as big as they get. But they perfume the bush around here with the most delicious citrusy smell. So that's their flower. Doesn't look like much, hey? But the perfume that comes off of this particular flower is unbelievable. It's a citrusy, lemony smell. and it sort of infuses the bush. Oh, that is just wonderful. It infuses the bush with these wafts of citrus that come off, and there's quite a lot of these whiteberry bushes around, and I would say that that's probably the strongest smelling flower out here. Next to the lantana, oh, this lantana has got the more you crush it, the more unpleasant this minty smell becomes, and will eventually become to a point where you don't like it at all. It becomes quite bitter and acrid. Anyway, we're going to go find something that doesn't smell as good as this. We should be with you in the next couple of minutes. In the meantime, we're going to send you over to Jamie with some buffalo.
Oh, here's a chap that hasn't stopped to smell the flowers, but has stopped for a break to chew the cud. A massive buffalo bull lying down sheltering from the windy afternoon and just enjoying, much like our lions were, a lazy Tuesday afternoon. I always find the process of ruminating and watching an animal ruminate thoroughly hypnotizing. There goes the one bolus. He's just chewed it, and oh, up comes the next one. And she gets another thorough chewing before heading back down again. Almost hypnotic the way that they do this. It is, of course, what makes a buffalo's digestive system so finely tuned, the process of chewing everything twice. However, interestingly enough, you can see that his eyes are closed, and it's found that when ruminating, an animal's brain waves actually mimic that of sleep. So whilst it doesn't pay to spend too much time sleeping if you're a prey species like a buffalo, lions are fine. There goes one down, and up, and back to the same process. Now, whilst the lions can afford to spend 20 hours sleeping a day, the buffalo and other animals definitely can't. In fact, they'll only really take short naps every now and again. And they compensate for that by having that rumination pattern where their brainwaves imitate that of sleep. I'm sure that Brent has spoken about buffalo before, being one of the most dangerous creatures to encounter out in the bush. This group of buffalo, though, is less so. It's actually a breeding herd that's moving through this area. I've seen a few of them are now getting up. Most of them were lying down when we first arrived, as I said, sheltering from the wind. But they seem to be thinking about getting up and on their feet once again. When I first arrived, that buffalo bull gave me such a narrow-eyed expression as I moved in. There's the rest of the herd moving about on my left. And I'm sure while you're listening, you might be hearing the beautiful sound of a bird call. Every now and again he whistles. Hold on, he'll do it again in a moment. Now, because I said something, he's stopped, which I find to be generally the case. If you point something else out, I can hear it again. He's up in the top of that marula tree there. I know it's difficult in this light. It is a black-headed oriole, one of the most beautiful birds out here, and definitely with one of the loveliest songs. I think he's in that one, yes. A little bit to the left, there he is. There on the left of your screen. There we go. That beautiful bright yellow and black head shining through. Oh. Or, you know, disappearing. He's the one responsible for making those beautiful whistles. There you go. A black-headed oriole, everybody. Just a quick stop, because he was distracting me with his whistling song. Earlier on, I actually happened to see some wattled starlings about, which is a species of bird that we've been seeing recently quite a bit, all hanging out around the buffalo herd. So I might go and try and see if we can get a closer look at them. In the meantime, nothing's better for getting a closer look than Ronald. Let's head across and have a look.
Well, while I was investigating this buffalo skull, everybody, which also has keratophagous moth things on it, Ronald spotted another bird. There is the hardy-dar ibis, everyone. And it is a sort of well, it's got what we call a probing beak, and that long beak there is used to probe for worms and things in the ground. It's got very sensitive nerve endings on the end of it that allows the hardy-dar not to sort of give itself a concussion when it drives its face into the ground. Now, what we're going to do is see if the hardy-dar ibis is as brave as the Egyptian goose. Come on, Ronald, now be stealthy. Ronald, you cannot hear this, of course, but Ronald does have a bit of a whiny motor. And I think, oh, the hardy-dar's getting a little bit nervous. Anyway, there is the hardy-dar. It has what we know as the most offensive call of any bird in Africa, and if you've happened to live perhaps in Johannesburg or Cape Town, which are two of our major cities in South Africa, the hardy-dar will normally sit on your roof at 0500 after a heavy night out and go, ha, 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 in your ear, which results in a lot of pain, shouting, and extremely bad language. Now, we're going to have a quick look into this buffalo skull by using the microscope. And what you can see is the fairly extensive sort of building works there. Now, I don't know what that is, and I'm going to do a bit of scraping away over the course of the next little while. There is a creature. Let's look there. Oh, look at that. No, it's not a creature, it's a grass seed, David. It's a grass seed, fear not. So I don't know what all of that muck is in there. I suspect it was perhaps built by a wasp, but we're going to investigate that during the course of the afternoon here. Anyway, so it goes. Stefan Winterboer still knocking about on foot. He's got size 10s. Xongile on camera's got size 14s. Watch out for those.
As far as I can remember, this is the first time that we're seeing zebra today. And there's a small herd of these striped horses that are feeding towards us. I think they actually know we're here, to be quite honest, because the wind is blowing from us to them. But I don't think they care. They're busy feeding in a thicket of silver cluster leaves, and I do know that the grass at these silver cluster leaves at the moment is about the best that you get anywhere. I see that zebra's moved slightly, so let us also change our direction a little bit. See if we can sneak up on these zebra. They're incredibly alert. Oh, excuse me, there was just a fly buzzing in my face. They're incredibly alert animals. Quite difficult actually to get quite close to them. But if you don't look like you're hunting them, they don't really mind that much. We're just going to step over here. Xongile, there's a massive tree here, so don't fall over it. Xongile's got size 111 feet. And even though that tree was very big, he was going to step in it. But we're a bit closer now. Those zebras are still facing us. Just have a look at that. The one on... Heads down. Now, what has been amazing is that in James's tent, there's a skull of a zebra. And I was lucky enough to unpack the box with it in yesterday, and I saw the muscle attachment on the bottom jaw. It was absolutely enormous. So what we're looking at there is that cheek piece, or that jowl of the zebra, has got the most enormous muscles attached to it. And of course, they use the muscles for chewing coarse grass. A zebra, unlike wildebeest, have a different type of digestion. They're not ruminants. They don't have a rumen. They are hindgut fermenters, and that means that they can process very large quantities of very coarse grass if needs be. They'll obviously choose the best grass if they can, but where they are unable to find good quality grasses, they don't mind eating the coarser grasses, and for that they need this massively overdeveloped jowls and muscles, these chewing muscles, the muscles that attach themselves to the bottom jaw here, but in actual fact get their power from muscles that run along the skull, on the side of the skull. We have it here. If you put your hands here on your head, so just above your ear, and you bite down very hard on your molars, you'll feel that the sides of your skull bulge, and you could probably see it on my bald head. I'll now crunch my teeth. Those muscles on a human are tiny little muscles like this big, but on a zebra they're about this big, and they just use to bring this jaw up, the bottom jaw up, and then move it from side to side so that they can move the grass between these very grinding surfaces of their molars, and that way they can break down this coarse, quite hard, lignified grass and get their nutrients from that. And because of their ability, their dynamic range of having or being able to utilize the best grasses to the worst grasses, zebra always look fairly healthy, comparatively speaking. Let's see if we can get into the open here a little bit. I must say, today just seems to be one of those days where we're just lucky enough to have things eating all over the place. And we're going to leave you with a view of the zebra and change you over or send you over to something quite different.
Look at this, there's a massive elephant bull coming right up to young Hosana. It seems like, hopefully for his sake, the elephant's not going to chase him, otherwise this really isn't his day. Here we go, look at that, a big adult elephant bull in his prime. Isn't he magnificent? Look at Hosana, he just carries on eating. Not worried about the Ellie. Ellie's not worried about them. Isn't that amazing? Now the wind is coming from the elephant towards the leopard, so I don't think that elephant smelt them. I'm going to keep an eye on him, but he is glorious. He's massive. He must be, I'm trying to do the maths now quickly, I think 18 foot, maybe I'm a bit exaggerating there. 4 meters, 16 foot at the shoulder. He is a very tall elephant, probably between 30 and 40 years old. And he's marching off to where young Xongile was. But I'm quite sure with her feminine wiles, she'll be able to avoid his attentions. Oh, isn't this incredible? My name is Brent. I've got my good friend Brian on camera, and we are just having the most splendid time here live in the African bush. We've got elephants coming past. We've had buffalo come through, and we've got a leopard cub munching on a recently retired impala. And of course, the thing that sort of sums it all up is this is live. You are experiencing this at the exact same time as we are. There we go, there's little Hosana, and he is growing so quickly. A mind warp is saying, wouldn't it be great to see him hoist a part of that kill? I think it would be absolutely amazing. We've seen him sort of playfully attempt to, but nothing very serious just yet. As I said, there's not much left of this kill. So I think tomorrow's sunrise safari is going to be tracking leopards again. Hopefully not for too long before we find them. And we're just incredibly privileged that we're able to follow these animals day in and day out through the African bush. There we go. Now, as you can see, this is quite a fresh kill. It was killed yesterday. And you can see the meat's still quite red. It hasn't got that gangly, green, rotting taint to it yet. And Janet was wondering well, how long would a leopard feed on a carcass before it was too rotten? Well, Janet, leopards have no problem with rotten meat. They would scoff it happily as they would scoff fresh meat, maggots and all. So most of the big cats don't have any problem at all with dealing with absolutely putrid meat. So the only people who probably have a problem with it is us when we sit down wind of the rotting carcasses. Now, this is quite a fresh carcass, but it seems like Steph has come across one that's a little bit older. Let's go have a look.
This is quite incredible, I must be honest with you. This buffalo carcass is about 2.5 weeks old, I think now, about 2.5, maybe 3 weeks old. And it's virtually untouched from when we left it the last time we were here. I mean, to a point where the legs are still here. I can only put it down to the fact that the hyena have either been absent in this particular area, or they're so full that they don't care about this, or they're quite scared of the lion that are just living around this area right at the moment. I think the lions have been here for now a good 8 to 10 weeks. And although they won't come back to this carcass, it's just being left to the flies. And it's actually incredible. I'm quite astounded, actually, to be quite honest with you. The legs haven't even moved, not even one piece. So no jackal, no hyena, no lion has come in here and fed on this carcass after we were last year and after the lions left. Basically just leaving it to the flies. And flies there are. I can count easily 4 different species of blowfly here. You've got from the big blue ones to a species that I haven't seen yet before this. I'm going to try and see if I can show you one. It's a fly with a big orange head. Can't see one right now. I did see one, but then it flew away. But by far and wide, the big blue blowflies, and then, oh, there's one. There's 2 of them here. It looks like the male and female of this particular species of blowfly. Whew. I'll tell you, this buffalo is quite whiffy. Now, we approached obviously from the upwind side of it, but I must be honest with you, my face is close to as close to this buffalo as what it is. I don't know if I'd rather choose one that had lion all over it. But just have a look at this. Now, these trees are also just covered in flies. Just this branch right here has just got flies all over it. Every bush, literally in a radius of about 10 yards, is just covered in flies. I wonder why they would stick around. I mean, there are some meat scraps here, definitely. I mean, these flies would be able to suck the nutrients from decaying flesh. That's what they do, and their maggots will be living, or were living, in whatever flesh was left. I don't see any maggots now. These are probably the offspring of the first flies that landed on this particular carcass. So those flies their maggots would have lived inside the decaying flesh, just as the lions left here. Their maggots would have dropped into the ground and would have hatched as flies, which would then fly up. And they're just waiting, I suppose, for the wind to pick up in another carcass. All right. Oh, we've got a less whiffy buffalo bone in that tent with James. He's going to show you.
Now, we have a piece of that buffalo leg like this. Now, you can see that nothing's eaten it over there, and because of that, and it does happen a lot, you can go and collect these kind of buffalo joints. Now, this is the humerus. That's the sort of top part of the arm. That there would be the radius, which is basically the elbow. You can see the elbow there. And there is the ulna. Now, if you were to hold your wrist, you'd find two bones, the radius and the ulna. The ulna is the thicker one, the radius the thinner one. Now, that is on the buffalo. Now, I wanted to just show you a comparison between 2 other species you've been looking at today. Well, actually only one, but there's another one in between that I need to show you. But in order to do that, I need to just quickly make some space. A second there. There we go. And what we have here is a giraffe radius, not radius, humerus. You can see there, that's the difference. And underneath that big elephant bull that you were watching with Brent there, this is the equivalent bone on the elephant. It is a 20 kilogram, 44-pound piece of bone. And there you can see the difference between the 3 species. I'm going to put them one on top of the other there. And to me, what's so cool about it is that a buffalo is massive. This is from a buffalo bull. That's an 800 kilogram or 2,000-pound animal. That's what that is. The giraffe, probably almost twice that, a really big bull giraffe. And then the elephant, well, 6,000 kilograms, more than 14,000 pounds odd is what that elephant you were looking at showed you there. Now, come over here. I'm going to have to squat because I was tossing my chair out of the window. Now, we have beautiful signs of spring. We've seen the flowers of the lantana, of the scotia or the weeping boer bean. Have a look at these flowers. And what I'm going to do is show you a microscope view of them because they're really rather beautiful. We have stared long and hard at the book that you can see over there. Unfortunately, this flower, none of us have seen before. And it does not occur in that book, so I do not know what it is called, but its beauty is undiminished. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Those are the purple petals, and they'll be giving off ultraviolet, which will attract insects, which will do the jobs of pollination. And then I'm focusing in on the anthers. Those are those purple bits with the yellow, honey yellow on the end. Isn't that stunning? That's the male part of the plant. And then the pink bit just to the bottom and left of that is the female part, the stigma, down which the pollen will travel, and this plant, whatever it is, will eventually, on the area I'm focusing now, produce a little seed or little fruit that something will either eat or carry away and drop in its dung somewhere. And then next year, I'm sure it's an annual plant, I don't think it's a perennial. Next year, a new plant will grow up in its place. And I just think that's rather special, don't you? Beautiful. Now, that's what it is there. And the other thing about it is that it's rather kind of, it's slimy. So if I squeeze it together like that, you can see quite a lot of slime. And I think that might be the key to figuring out what it is. Now, the leopards are still on their impala, not finished yet. It's a quite blustery day, so they're in some thick bush. Let's go and find out if the food for their tea is keeping them warm.
Well, there's not going to be much left of this impala once young Hosana has finished with his late afternoon tea. Now, his sister was looking sufficiently well fed when we saw her. She is still behind us somewhere. She hasn't made her way back towards the carcass yet, but that doesn't mean she won't, and I don't want to miss a second of the action here, so we're not going to leave. And it is just so wonderful to be able to spend time with him. You can see he's now going through. Oh, he's just actually separated what looked like a piece of the shoulder from the rest of the leg, the lower leg. There we go. You can actually even see the joint. There we go. That looks like a scapula. Oh, yes, that's a scapula. So there we go. You can see the ball joint where the rest of that leg would have attached and giving it movement. So what would we probably call that? An elbow. And then you can see how he's, or shoulder actually, shoulder, not an elbow. There we go. And you can see it. And you see how he uses his paws to hold it down. There we go. Whoop. Now, leopards don't have the massive bite force available to lions and hyenas. So, on some of those bigger bones on a large antelope, or a large antelope for a leopard like this, they're unable to crush through and get to the marrow on the inside. Now, with a small antelope or a baby impala or a baby something else, the leopards will crush those bones so they can feed off the nutrient-rich marrow on the inside. Is he done? Are you done? Now, Karula's been hunting a lot recently due to the fact that these cubs are growing so fast, but Faith's wondering how many times a week, or what's the usual sort of rate of a leopard making a kill. So a single female leopard on her own, you're probably looking at every 3 to 4 days on average, but now with cubs of this age that are completely dependent on meat, she's probably having to kill far more frequently. It also depends on the size of the kill. But I mean, this was a full adult female impala yesterday, and it's almost non-existent today. Now, they can probably live off the meat from this for a day or two, but more than likely, Mom will be out hunting again this evening. If not this evening, definitely early tomorrow morning. There we go. You can see the ribs not quite as thick as the leg bones, and he is managing to crush through some of them. And of course, unfortunately for him, there's not as much marrow inside the ribs. So even a young leopard like this has an incredibly powerful bite. Munch, munch, munch. Now, I'm still really hoping that his sister comes back in. And as we just found out, you never know what happens, because an elephant had just walked in and joined us while we were sitting next to these incredible leopards. We had buffalo earlier, and you literally actually never know what's going to happen. But I think he's going to be making quick work of this kill, and I'm really hoping that his sister comes in and feeds again. We are about to go into a little break, but there's just so much action happening out here. You really need to stick around, so don't go anywhere. But for the last few seconds before we go, let's look at the beautiful animal, and that is the young Hosana. Now, will his sister come join? Will his mother come join? Or will another creature suddenly appear? And there we go. Practicing, practicing, practicing makes perfect. And same goes for the leopards. The more they practice hunting, practice fighting, the better they get at it. Even though a lot of those instincts are built in, they are instincts. That behavior, sorry, I got the words mixed up there. The behavior is instinctual. But of course, the more they do it, the better they get at it. Now we're sitting with some spots. Let's go across to Steph with some stripes.
You know, we've decided to stay with these zebra a little bit. They're just being so accommodating to us. It's almost like they don't really care that we're there. There's a distance of probably about 30 or 40 yards between us and these zebra, and they're maintaining that. Here come another couple. There must be about 10 or 15 zebra in this particular herd, or dazzle as they like to be called. Now, there's quite a lot of speculation, or there's always a bit of speculation around whether or not zebra can carry loads. Can you use a zebra in a cart, or could you ride a zebra? The answer to that question is no, as far as I know from farrier friends of mine. They say that the hoof is too small, and any additional weight on the zebra splits the hoof, so you can't really use them. Now, Barbara has asked if zebra are territorial. Barbara, they do have a home range, and that home range is quite large, and it's seasonal. So in the summertime, the home range is pretty small and would consist mainly of them moving from water, small pans and pools, to the best feeding areas. In the dry season, that extends to a point where we are at right now, at the end of October, although it doesn't look like it today with the clouds overhead, but the grass should be at about its lowest in October. Beginning of the month, end of the month, it depends on the year. This year it seemed to be at the beginning of the month. Zebra will move their most distances then. So they'll eat during the day, and then they'll move around about midday really to water, and then back to feeding areas. Now they seem to have given us the slip here, but let's go forward a little bit and see if we can see another one. They're all sort of keeping there we go. They seem to be keeping us at a reasonable distance. Let's see if we can go through over here. Get another view of these ones on this side. We've probably been inside of this herd now for a good 25 or 30 minutes or so. And just getting these sights of these legs here. It's just such a privilege being on foot. We are in the middle of the Kruger Park in a private game reserve called Nkuhuma. And these animals have pretty much been living here forever. They haven't been reintroduced into this area. The Kruger National Park and its surrounding game reserves were sort of proclaimed over 100 years ago now in an effort to save the last wilderness areas that were left. So this hasn't been colonized and then made wild again. The Kruger National Park has pretty much always been like this. And it's just such a privilege to be on foot with wild animals that sort of share an ancestry unbroken. It's actually just lovely and peaceful being here, I must be honest with you. Now you can see that zebra's gone back to eating again, doesn't actually care that we're here. Knows full well that we're here. There's one looking at us. Now, we're going to have some visitors joining us again in a couple of seconds. Now, we're still with the zebra. Have a look at that. I don't know, that zebra's chewing on something. Now, we've been with the zebra for the last 20 or 30 minutes or so. And why I remarked on that particular zebra chewing something is that this time of the year, when their diets contain very little nutrition, it's not uncommon for zebra to chew bones. It's called osteophagy, and the zebras chew the bones to get deficiencies in calcium and potassium that they don't get from the grass that they eat. So anyway, they look like they've moved off into some bush. We're going to take this time to create some distance, leave them alone for the day. I'm going to send you over to James in the tent.
Well, everybody, we're here with the rover, and there's an elephant approaching. I'm just going to move slowly closer. There's the rover, and the elephant is just behind this little sort of knoll over here. Where is he? Ronald, don't get a... Ooh, there. There he is. Oh, dear. Hello. Now, don't stand on Ronald, please. You very large fellow. You can see very clearly that this is a bull on account of the fact that he has got tusks that turn out frontwards. You see that, David? Yes, James. Yes, no other indication at this... Oh, no, there's the other indication. Now, we're not going to move Ronald at this stage because that will either result in the elephant taking a swat at him or turning round and taking fright. There you can see the wonderful shot of the dam cam, Ronald and his new friend, Eric the elephant. Very nice. Now, what I'm going to do is just slowly turn Ronald a little bit. Very slight movement. And what we don't want to do is give the elephant a fright. There we are. He's okay so far. He's not worried at all. And again, if this was the height of a horrible drought, I probably wouldn't do this because, of course, that would make it a little difficult. Oh, my goodness, look at Eric. Hello, Eric, you look magnificent. You are a fine fellow. Not as fine as Ronald, but you're still very fine. So during the middle of a drought, I'd be reticent to do this just because I wouldn't want to frighten the elephant away from the water. There is some standing water around at the moment because of the little bit of rain that we've had, so I'm not too worried about it now. Now, what I would like you to take note of is the hair on the back of the elephant's tail. Look at that. It's like coarse wire, everyone. And often people think that elephants, of course, do not have hair, which is a mammal characteristic. And that, of course, is an indication that they do have very coarse hair there. Now, Eric, you can see his ears open. That means he's aware of something. He's either looking at the hippo, which I think he might be. Can we have a quick look at the dam cam view? I think he's possibly looking at Henry the hippopotamus and taking slight offense that he is there with the water. Or he's had a little look at Eric, but I don't think it's, at least at Ronald, I don't think it's Ronald. And the hippo will be very aware of this elephant. And likewise, Ronald is very aware. You can see he's being very shy. Ronald is not normally shy. Now, let's just follow the elephant a little bit. There we go. Well done, Ronald. This is so cool. There we go. Yeah, he's a nice friend, isn't he, Ronald? Just don't get too close. Elephants don't always like to make friends straight off the bat. Now, I think this elephant is going to get offended by the hippo. So what we're going to do, I'm going to turn Ronald quickly, and while we're with the dam camera view there, I'm going to drive Ronald down to the water's edge. Whoops-a-daisies. Ronald just went over a very steep edge, everybody. We'll just turn him to face the action now at the water's edge. There we go. We got a two-shot of both of them. Look at this. Isn't that gorgeous? Let's have a quick look at Ronald's view. There he is. Ronald can see the hippopotamus and the elephant. Very nice. And they're having a little bit of a spat. It's a silent Mexican standoff. The hippo doesn't want to give up the water. The elephant is quite offended by the fact that the hippo is in his water. And what is interesting here is that there's no reason for the elephant to be that side. He's chosen to go around there because he's an elephant bull. Elephant bulls are curious. They don't like to be challenged, and frankly, I think being so intelligent, they get bored. And so the entertainment provided by another animal like this, I think he really quite enjoys. And so he's kind of having a drink with Henry the hippo. I'm going to move the rover a little bit around and just see if we can't get a slightly better view. There you can see Ronald moving now. There we go, let's turn him. I don't want to get too close, of course, because like I say, Ronald does make a little bit of a noise. There he is. And we don't also want to get caught up in a bow wave from any movement, because that elephant, if he gets irritated with the hippo, will create the hippo or make the hippo move very suddenly, and that will create a wave which will drown Ronald, who is inescapably not waterproof. There's also a little insect knocking off to the right-hand side of your screen, and it's just having a little bit of drink and perhaps fetching some mud. In fact, I suspect it could be a potter wasp that is fetching mud. Now let's go back and look at the elephant. There he is. I don't know what he's thinking now. He's smelling the hippo. I suspect he's looking at Ronald. There's a wonderful shot, isn't that great? Of the robot, the elephant, and the hippo. This is fascinating, you know. Hello, Lucian. Wonderful to hear from you. Thank you for my first tent question today. Great to hear from you. You say, do elephants and hippo fight? Well, they have conflict over the same resource, which means that that is inevitably going to result in a sort of a, I guess you could call it a fight, but a hippo will just avoid an elephant. If this elephant takes genuine offense, the hippopotamus will get up and move. He's not going to have a fight with an elephant this size. I would put this elephant bull at probably about 30 years or so. So he's not quite as big as he's going to get, but he's in, you know, he's a full-sized bull, and there's no ways a hippopotamus like this, which weighs probably around about, let's say, 2,500 kilograms. Well, I'm going to say he's not quite that big yet. So it's 2,000 kilograms, which is roughly 4,500 pounds. The elephant is probably 2.5 times that size. So there's no kind of comparison size-wise, and danger-wise, the hippo would be in some serious danger. Right, we're going to have another look at Ronald, and we'll just do a little scuttle round and see if we can't get a slightly better view of how close they are. Let's move him there. We'll just turn him right now, and then you'll see the two animals facing off, and you'll get a view of how close they are. There's Ronald. He's really got quite good traction, doesn't he? Excellent 4x4. And there the elephant is looking at him. You can see that. And there they've got a nice view of each other. And he's also trying to smell Ronald. He's sticking his trunk out and having a smell. Now, it's a cool day, like Jamie said. I think she said about 21 degrees Celsius, 63 degrees Fahrenheit. That's not particularly warm for this time of year, and it definitely means that the elephants don't have to eat that much, which is, at least drink that much, which is nice for them and great for us, so that we can have a conversation like we just have with Ronald. Let's head back across to the eastern end of Juma, where the great queen is lurking with her kill and her cubs.
Well, the little prince is still getting stuck in to what's left of this impala. The great queen we can just make out over there, and she is lying in probably not the most dignified queenie posture. And she's sleeping soundly with her big fat belly. Young Xongile, not sure where she is. She's somewhere still behind us, not too far away. One of the other game drive vehicles, as they drove in, said they saw her how far, about 30-40 meters away, so she has moved closer from where we saw her sneak off. But as I said, there's even a chance they might get moving before the end of the sunset safari. Oh, he's moving the carcass, just repositioning it to a better spot to make a better spot for him to eat in. And you can see her head off to the right there, and he looks like he's chewing on the edge of the ribs at the moment. Now, this is an adult female impala, which is a fairly sizable kill for an animal or a leopard of Karula's size. Now, Louisa's wondering, what is the largest animal a leopard will hunt? Now, again, it all depends on the individual and the area, Louisa. Now for Karula, I'm trying to think. I don't think I've seen her take much bigger than a male impala in nearly 2 years here. Quickly across to James. Quickly.
The rover with Ronald is, well, he might be in trouble. Let's have a look. Look at that. Now, I'm not going to move Ronald at this stage. I'm going to sit down because my heart rate is starting to go up almost as much as Ronald is. Now, as I said, elephant bulls, very curious. Bored of walking around trying to find enough to eat. No friends this fellow has. So rather like Ronald, I think he's looking for a bit of entertainment. And that's what's going on here. I don't believe for 1 second that he feels threatened by Ronald. Ronald sits about 1 foot off the ground. Look at the waves. This is just wonderful. I'm going to just tilt Ronald so that we can get a slightly better view. Very slowly. There we go. Hi. That is so cool. Now this elephant, oh gosh, here we go. Now they're very aware, so he won't stand on it by mistake. That's not to say he won't stand on Ronald on purpose. He might do that, but he would never stand on him by mistake. They're extremely aware of where they stand, and Ronald has been in amongst the feet of a whole herd of elephants, young ones and old ones, and they all stepped around him. It was very clear to see that they could feel and sense exactly where he was. Now, what elephants also do is engage in something called displacement behavior. When you are next at a drinks party or some kind of social engagement where you don't know what's going on, and that's what's going on here. Ronald, at least Eric the elephant, doesn't know what's going on with Ronald. Think how many times you will take a sip of a drink or something just to kind of keep yourself busy without actually wanting it. That's what's going on here. This elephant is kind of pretending to drink. They often pretend to feed, and that's simply because he's not quite sure what's happening. And that's called displacement behavior. In the very same way you might fiddle with your hands or, twiddle your thumbs or put your hand in your pocket and fiddle with your hemline. There we go. That is a bit of a David and Goliath situation going on there. This is wonderful. I love this. And also you can see an oxpecker sitting on the hippo. Now, we were watching the zebra with Steph, and I think the zebra, there was an oxpecker sitting there just trying to stay warm, and I think that's what that other oxpecker is doing. Right, so the elephant has now had enough. He's got a little bit bored of Ronald. And Darlene, while the elephant moves off, you want to know if Ronald is water resistant. Ronald is less water resistant than your average tea bag, Darlene, which means no, we have to keep him out of the water. If it rains, he has to go under cover. And certainly if that hippopotamus starts getting rambunctious in the water, we'll have to reverse him back a bit. Anyway, the elephant has had enough of the hippopotamus and Ronald, which I think is all rather amusing. Isn't that fun? I think it's hugely fun. Now, over here, I have a zebra skull, and I've been wanting to show this to you because it's brand new. And Steph, of course, was looking at zebra, and he was telling you about those muscles that attach to the top of the skull, and that's where they attach to the top of the skull, and they'll fill that whole area there, around where my finger is, and they'll attach down onto the bottom jaw so that the zebra can chew continuously all day long on the molars over here. You can see that. And they don't kind of have that round motion in the same way that ruminants do. It's much more an up and down motion. But then also, unlike a ruminant, he's got these incredible front teeth. Now, they are not only for cropping grass. Oh, no. Now, any of you who've ever had a horse or been around horses will know that horses can bite. And I have been bitten by horses, not over the head like I'm showing you here, but on the back of my back. And I have scars to prove it. And these teeth are very, very sharp, and they're extremely good at helping the zebra defend itself. So that is a zebra skull, and I think it's rather spectacular. Isn't that incredible? Now, we are going to go off for a short break. Of course, when you come back, hopefully we'll have more of those 3 gorgeous leopards. Perhaps Jamie will go back to the lions and Steph will be knocking about on foot. So don't go very far. We'll see you very shortly. Now, with the internet view, sorry about that, you may have heard David saying, hat, hat. And what he meant was, I can't see your eyes. And there, now you can see my eyes sparkling as I link over to Jamie, who's got some wildebeest and buffalo.
The TV. Oh, we are back up and running once again, and we're going to play a game of Spot the Difference here. I think this is the first time I've ever had this happen whilst I've been doing these live drives. We've got a combination of 2 different herds here, but with 2 animals that very often, for novices in the bush, get confused. One is a herd of buffalo, the other is a herd of blue wildebeest. And it's a great way of us to really get a nice idea of size comparison between the 2 animals. Believe it or not, the blue wildebeest is not closely related to cows in any way, which means it's not closely related to the buffalo either. Yes, they might have the same digestive system, but blue wildebeest is actually more of an antelope than the buffalo. It actually really gives you an idea of the dramatic difference in size between the 2 species. Oh, here comes the rest of them. Little one at the back, lighter in color than the rest, and his or her horns, only just starting to come through. Hello. Little male. There we go, a really nice, interesting collection of different animals, buffalo and wildebeest. Our Susan in the Netherlands. Lovely to have you as always on our sunset safari. We're looking at 2 different types of ruminants who, of course, both of these species will chew their food twice. You want to know if their teeth wear down faster because they chew their food twice. I guess so. I guess in that the more chewing you do... No, they don't, actually. I'm changing that answer. Sorry, Susan. No, they won't, because pound for pound, a herbivore that is a ruminant has to eat less than a herbivore that is not a ruminant. So let's take, for example, zebra and a blue wildebeest that are roughly the same weight, give or take, or size. There's not really anything that is a hindgut fermenter that's comparable to a buffalo in size. But let's take blue wildebeest and zebra. A zebra will probably have to eat twice the amount of a wildebeest, even though they are roughly the same size. And that's because, like with these buffalo, the ruminating is a far more effective way of digesting their food. So they get more out of the food that they do eat, and they need to eat less of it. So the fact that they chew it twice essentially means they do the same amount of chewing as a zebra that eats twice the amount of food, if you get my logic. There you go, that was my answer to that. But it depends on size as well. So a larger animal has to eat more, has to chew more. So yes, in a way, buffalo teeth will wear down because they've got to constantly eat, but not as much as something like an elephant. And the reason that elephants' teeth wear down as fast as they do is their constant eating to sustain their massive size and their diet as well. Our buffalo in front of us are, as I say, grazers. One's busy eating a leaf behind the buffalo in front, just because animals don't read the textbook. Buffalo are almost always grazers, so their main diet is grass. Elephants are mixed feeders, so they eat grass, they eat leaves, they eat bark, and all sorts of much harder food than these buffalo. I don't want to keep you away from those gorgeous spotted cats for too long. Let's head back across to Brent and his leopards.
Well, he is certainly making a meal out of this. It's almost done. He's, as you can see, just a bit of the rib cage left, a bit of the neck. And I would say in the next 45 minutes or an hour, there's going to be no food left here. And the leopards will probably lie about, lounge about, laze about for a while before heading to the closest water, which is probably Twin Dams Road, around the waterhole there. And I think that's where they're going to head. So maybe on the sunrise safari you might find them around the Mulwati River. It's been quite productive for us with Karula over the last couple of weeks. So hopefully it continues to produce incredible sightings of these cubs. There we go, you can see he's hiding behind the rib cage. And the pickings are getting slim. Welcome back. As you can see, young Hosana, the Prince of Djuma, is still busy devouring his impala carcass. His sister is yet to make an appearance. My name is Brent, and we're hopefully going to be seeing 3 leopards in one spot shortly. At the moment, we can only see 2 from where we are. The third is behind us somewhere, and they're nearly finished, so hopefully over the night they're going to be able to catch another one. You never know, that's the joy. An impala and a nyala might wander right into us now, and that could lead to a hunt and another kill right in this very same spot. Are you finished yet? Are you going to leave any for your little sister? Probably not. If you've got any questions about these fantastic animals, hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Okay, Chai Connie's wondering why there are no flies, and there are. You can see, there we go, there's a little blowfly. And the reason we don't have a sort of mass of flies is due to the cool weather. So there are some flies, you can see them coming in and out of the nasal cavity there. But due to the cold weather, there's not so many flies around, which has also led to the carcass not rotting as quickly, which the flies wouldn't have been able to find as easily. So there are flies, just not the mass you would get if it was hot, and they'd be able to pick up that rotting, tainted flesh scent and descend to lay their eggs and produce the next generation of flies on Djuma. Now, of course, a lot of people find flies quite gross, but they are quite important. Oh, he's done. Oh, has he got a little limp? Oh, no, he just stepped on a stick. What do you think, Brian? Little stiff?
Little stiff.
A little stiff from his baboon encounter this morning. It looks like he might. No, he's not going to go towards his mom. He's going to flop down. We're going to have to move to go get a view of them. Just have a quick peer over my shoulder, see if the female's visible. She's not. Now, and let's go to Steph with a creepy crawly.
Walking through this particularly pleasant, there we go, they're all bungee jumping away. Now I just wanted to show you, walking through this particularly pleasant grove of trees, we bumped this monkey orange tree, and from it parachuted hundreds of these tiny little caterpillars. Now, they are furry, those are irritant hairs, and they are producing silk, and it's that silk that they're using to escape a would-be predator, I would presume. As to what caterpillars they are, the closest thing we can find is probably a butterfly called an acria. But just have a look. Oh, there we go. Decided it was a bit camera shy. But this entire monkey orange bush is basically just covered in these caterpillars. And one of the nice things we wanted to show you was around about here. These black dots on top of the leaf, that is their dung. That's called caterpillar frass. That's their dung. And I think if we have a look a little bit to your right, getting confused, you'll be able to see some caterpillars mining the leaf. Now they're actually doing considerable damage to this particular tree, but they're not eating the entire leaf. What they're doing is they're just mining the layers of this leaf. Now, what's astounding is that I haven't ever seen anything eating the leaves of this monkey orange. They're not particularly distasteful. They're also not, they're not poisonous as far as I know. The Strychnos genus in India contains strychnine, and in India they can become unpleasant and they can actually become quite dangerous to people. But in South Africa, this particular tree, the monkey orange tree, the fruit is used, from this one, this is the black monkey orange, the Madagascariensis. The fruit is used as a very effective and powerful aphrodisiac, so it doesn't really kill you. But, and you used quite the opposite, generating, yes. But I'm just astounded at how many caterpillars are actually here. And I think I actually just want to show you, we just lightly touched this tree. And just have a look at that. Probably about 4 or 5 of them, just at that light touch, parachuted off of the tree, giving us one last look at this caterpillar. Now I know James has some caterpillar eggs in that tent of his, and I'm sure he's dying to show you what they look like close up.
Yes, before Stefan says any more about the aphrodisiacal properties of strychnos and their effects, let's have a look at some caterpillar eggs. Now, as far as I'm aware, these things have no aphrodisiacal properties whatsoever, and look at them, they look like little pine cones, and you can see they're attached by little silken stalks to the leaf, and that's probably because they eat what is known as a combretum tree or a red bush willow, and that's the leaf on which they've been laid. Isn't that gorgeous, that golden color? Perfectly shaped. And also what I wanted to show you was that little black thing on the top of the pine cone in perfect focus. That is an insect. What it's doing there, it's probably waiting patiently for a little caterpillar to hatch so it can parasitize it, but that's a little insect there, which I think is absolutely astounding. Now, just before we go away, I want to show you something else that we've just found outside. And now this is a frightening thing. It is well, it's not that frightening, but look in there and I will try and then show you to you under the microscope. It's called a velvet ant, and it is the female version of a wasp. It is flightless. It is not an ant at all. It is a wasp, and it will sting you something cruel. You do not want to be stung by one of these things. So what I'm going to do is put it down on this black piece of paper. Well, no, I'm going to take it out of here because it'll almost certainly jump onto my face and sting me to death. No, it won't really do that, but it will hurt me. Now, let me try and focus it quickly. There we go. Look at the back side of this thing. Look at the hair. It looks like a perfectly hairy little domino. Isn't that gorgeous? And let's try and get to the head. There we go. There's the head. Now that is a velvet ant, and you can see why it's called a velvet ant. Well, you can see why it's called velvet, but as I say, it's not an ant at all. It is a wasp. The male has got flight, the female has no flight, and out of that backside there, a nasty little sting will stick into you. It won't harm you. Well, it'll make you yelp and squeal, as it did me once. Obviously, I squealed very manlily, but they do definitely have a nasty bite. Anyway, that is the velvet ant. Isn't that marvelous? Right. Jamie Patterson is with the scavenger, but a scavenger of the air.
The amazing and very, very crucial to our ecosystem scavengers of the air. I was going to make my way back towards the Nkuhumas, the lions that we started off our afternoon's drive with, but unfortunately we have to make space for other vehicles and the guests to have a chance to enjoy the magic moments spent with those cubs. So for now we're sitting on the outskirts and just enjoying this view of 3 very chilly white-backed vultures patiently waiting their turn for when the lions decide to leave that carcass and they can descend from their dead tree perch. 4 white-backed vultures, my apologies, descend from their dead tree perch and make their way through into that area. Well, the lions are just in there. You can see more of them gathered on those dead trees on that spot, and the massive bulky birds. A dead tree like this provides the perfect perch as long as you pick your branches with care. I have seen branches dissolve under the weight of a vulture as they sit on them. and the vulture has to frantically flap to recover itself. But for now, all of them seem to have found sturdy perches, and they just have to wait their turn. See them fluffed up and cold. I think there's rain on the way. I'm keeping my fingers crossed for rain tonight. I really hope that's what this grey and dark horizon means for us. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Look at that. Here you go, the impala, walking very, very close to those lions. I wonder if they realize just how close they truly are. It wouldn't be completely impossible that the lions would stir themselves to hunt those impala. They're not far away at all. But that being said, I think with hungry bellies and with 3 adult lionesses and 8 cubs, it might not even be worth the energy expenditure. Our Susan, welcome to the Sunset Safari. You wanted to know if we go out on safari every day. Yes, we do. Every single day, twice a day, 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the afternoon. You can join us on our live safari drives. Yes, every single day, which is wonderful because we get to keep track of all of the different incredible creatures. And speaking of incredible creatures that we get to see, let's go back over to the royal family.
Well, Brian and I were feeling a little bit left out. Steph's got caterpillars, James has got caterpillar eggs, and by chance a caterpillar, or actually an inchworm, fell onto Brian, and he's now playing dead. Now, this actually looks like it's a butterfly larvae of some kind. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to consult the book at some stage. It's relatively large for inchworms. Some of them we've had have been far less than an inch. This one might be an inch. But of course, the star of our little segment here is not the little caterpillars, it's the wonderful leopards. And there's little Hosana, who has decided he is done feeding. Mom has now gone onto the carcass, and she's chewing through some of the bigger bones that he probably has not quite got the jaw strength for yet. And young Xongile is being aloof and still sticking a little bit further away, showing that independent streak that female leopards have, which causes them to go independent at a younger age than the little males. Now, there we go, Karula looking back, making sure Hosana hasn't found himself in trouble again. Isn't she absolutely gorgeous? Yes, you deserve all the meals you get, Karula, having to look after these little rascals. Speaking of a little rascal, where are you off to? Where are you going, little one? Oh, now his mom defecated there, and no, I thought he might defecate on top of his mother. The leopard cubs do that sometimes. And maybe he's going to look for his sister. Maybe he feels like it's time for a bit of games. Okay, let's just reposition quickly. Now, there's been some very valuable lessons learnt by Karula's cubs over this last 10 days. And James Dungan's wondering, will the baboon and wild dog encounter stead them well as they get older? Most definitely. All those type of experiences can only aid their quest for survival. So yes, it will help in the long run, James. Okay. Let's try get one last view. It does look like he's heading towards where his sister was. Sorry about the scrape. Let me move that bush. So I'll just stop here. Well, as he disappears off to go look for his little sister, James has got an incredible encounter from about 2 inches from the ground to show you.
Ronald's made a new friend, everybody, just before we hand you over. It is Edward. Edward the elephant. Hello, Edward. Edward is taking offense to Ronald. He came quite close, had a smell, and decided that Ronald was distasteful in smell. And so now he's going to try and find some fresh water, which, incidentally, you will see just in front of the elephant's trunk there's a pipe. That's a sort of long thing there. And that was the pipe that fed this pan. And that's where the elephants used to go and get the fresh water, which I think is marvellous. Wasn't that an exceptional sighting? Just want to quickly see. Can we have a quick look at the dam camera quickly before we close? No, we can't. Sorry, we're on the credits. Okay, everybody, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a great joy to see you. Thank you, David, for your efforts. A big thank you, of course, to Brent Leo Smith, out with the leopards, and Jamie with the lions, and all the cameramen and the crew. It's been lovely, especially, however, talking to you during the course of what has been a very spectacular, blustery afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow at 05:30. Until then, stay safe and happy wherever you are.